Welcome to Torchlight's Exceptional Parenting Podcast, where we talk with the nation's top experts about today's toughest parenting challenges. Whether you're concerned about your child's development, learning, behavior, or you just want to make family time more enjoyable, we share the practical solutions and tools that can help.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Torchlight's Exceptional Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Boucher, and today I am lucky to be here with licensed independent clinical social worker Gena Rotas. In addition to being a two-time author, public speaker, and mindfulness instructor, Gena has a psychotherapy and coaching practice where she has developed a deep level of experience providing counsel to children and families of all different types, including many individuals who are in at-risk populations. Welcome back, Gena.
Oh, hi. I'm glad to be here.
I am so glad to have you here. And I say welcome back because some of our listeners may remember, Gena, that I had you back on the show in season 1, where we talked about how parents can improve the relationships they have with their children by using positive communication techniques. And we got a lot of positive feedback on that show, by the way.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but I had said at the end of the episode that I wanted to have you back on the show. And I said that because there is just never a shortage of things that I would like to talk with you about. And I could go on from there, but it's always a good time. So I wanted to talk about mindfulness today. And I really wanted to address this topic in the context of kids for a while now. And of course, I thought of you immediately because this is really your thing. It's something near and dear to your heart. So this is going to be fun.
Great.
Academic and media interest in mindfulness, and I think just interest in popular culture generally, has skyrocketed in recent years. Most people probably have at least heard of mindfulness at this point, and have also likely heard that it's supposed to be really helpful in terms of adding joy and value to one's life. And yet, not everyone may know exactly what it is. We hear a lot of buzzwords flying around, like mindfulness or mindfulness meditation, or even just meditation. So I think we should start maybe by defining some of these terms for people in case they aren't clear. What is mindfulness? And is a mindfulness practice the same thing as meditation, or is there a difference between these two things?
Oh, so that's a lot of information that I can give you. Okay, so mindfulness has been around since human beings have been around, but we've put some definition to it that helps us understand what being mindful is. And the most common one is that you are paying attention in a particular way, but you're doing it on purpose, and you're staying in the present moment, the now. And also that you have a sense of kindness and compassion in your attention, either to yourself or the situation or what's going on, and always in a non-judgmental way. And that last piece, the non-judgmental way, probably is the biggest challenge for all of us.
Yeah.
So even when you're being judgmental and you're aware of it, you're paying attention to it, you can be kind to yourself and compassionate with yourself. Oh, I was being very judgmental. And that gives you some space. So mindfulness, in short, is being aware.
Okay.
And most of our lives, we're not really aware. We're like a knee-jerk reaction to a situation. And then after we react to it, we think, why did I say that? Why did I do that? And we're not kind of in charge. Mindfulness gives you a chance to slow down and choose how you want to respond or react in a particular situation. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's not so much that mindfulness is meditation, because I think a lot of people think of mindfulness as a meditation exercise that you do. It's more about something you can be doing all day, all the time, to remind yourself to stop and feel and process and think about where you are.
Right. Could you imagine a life where everybody was present and was kind and compassionate, non-judgmental, and was able... So that really is kind of like the foundation. There is mindfulness meditation. That's one of the ways that you can practice mindfulness. And being still is very powerful. And now with all the research behind what goes on in the brain, we're getting more evidence about how important it is to learn how to be still and quiet. And if meditation is the place where you want to practice that, we can then talk a little bit more about that. So meditation has all different kinds of forms, as well as mindfulness does. There's no one particular way, and you can't do it wrong.
Right. And that was going to be one of my questions is there a right and a wrong way? So it's good to know that there isn't. I think where some of the confusion happens between the two terms, mindfulness and meditation, is that meditation does, in fact, help people become more mindful. So if you are someone who meditates every day or frequently even, you may start to become someone who becomes more mindful during the rest of your day as well. So I think meditation, as you said, can be a great tool in becoming more mindful, but they're sort of separate in and of themselves.
Yeah, and I think if we looked at mindfulness and meditation as a skill, and that skills have to be practiced, and practice means I have to do it regularly. So if I meditate regularly, like every day for even 2 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour, if I'm mindful throughout the day or occasionally, or, maybe just when I brush my teeth or especially when I'm driving, if I'm mindful. So that develops the skill of becoming more mindful in our lives and finding kind of like that space in between. We call it the stimulus and the response, so that I get to choose how I want to respond because I've practiced all the skills.
Right. That's great. I think this really will help clarify these concepts for people. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. When I work with teachers, I say, you expect the kids to know their times tables or their addition tables or, the skills in math, and you practice. And you practice at home and you practice at school and you write them over and over again, and they get better at it. And then they incorporate it and internalize what it is that they need when they come to a problem, and they have the facts there and they can solve the problem. So I want teachers and parents and kids to understand that mindfulness and meditation, being still, all of those are teachable, practicable skills that we need to continually incorporate in our lives, so that when we come up against a situation, it kind of like is born in us. It comes naturally, just like the times tables come naturally after the kids learn the facts. Does that
Great.
also help? Yeah.
Yes, that's so helpful. We hear a lot as adults about how we can improve our lives by being more mindful. And the research that has been done suggests that it can improve mental health, help us deal with trauma, improve our cognitive performance, and even help us deal with things like chronic pain. Is this also the case for children? And what types of specific benefits might we see in young people who practice mindfulness?
Well, you certainly listed a whole lot of wonderful things that can happen for yourself if you do practice it, right?
Yeah.
So there's no difference between what the kids have and what we have. A lot of kids suffer from anxiety. They suffer from worry. They suffer from anger, from inattention. And what we've begun to find out or recognize is that if we help them learn mindfulness skills and tools, that they can kind of have a handle on their emotional landscape. So they become calmer when they're in a situation that takes them down, crazy lane, because they've practiced mindfulness and breathing and being still. And we know now that in the brain, we can change the dynamics of the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is the seat of learning, and the amygdala is that fight, flight, freeze response. And when kids are upset or angry or scared, it's really hard for them to learn. So by teaching them about mindfulness and about meditation, about calming down and being still, we're giving them the tools that they can manage their own brain. And certainly the energy of emotions that they don't know how to do it because nobody has taught them. We don't know how to do it.
I was going to say many adults don't know how to do it either.
Right.
But, that's really relevant for kids, especially because, you mentioned earlier that we live most of our lives just sort of responding to things without thinking about it all that much. And I think this can be especially true with children. Children naturally have a little bit more impulsivity to begin with. They're a little more in touch with their primal selves, perhaps.
Yes.
So it's especially useful in children, I think, to sort of give them that skill of learning how to pause and take stock of what's going on in them at the moment. And then that just is this great tool to carry with you as you go through not only childhood, but adolescence and right on through your adulthood.
Right.
And
I had a teacher who noticed a big difference in her classroom when she practiced breathing and mindfulness and small moments of meditation. And her comment was, I wish as a child, someone had taught me these skills so that I could have continued to make healthy decisions in my life.
Yes.
So that awareness. Yeah, that awareness of here we can give these kids some real strategies that are going to help them learn how to manage their emotional roller coaster that they're entitled to because they are just pure energy.
Yes.
And I usually say to parents especially of teenagers, there's no porch light on. Their cortex is not working. You can talk to them. They'll look at you and they'll go, what? It's like they don't hear you. And so having them learn some skills that are going to be helpful, I think, is really important for kids.
Yeah. It's interesting too. A lot of schools throughout the country are experimenting with this. And I think anecdotally, at least, it's often pretty successful.
Yes.
It would be great if there could be more large scale studies so that we could sort of get this into classrooms on a more regular basis. But hopefully that's coming.
Yes. We did with a couple of colleagues, did a whole training for children and staff a year ago in September, trained everybody. And I would say probably maybe 50 or 40% of the teachers continued using the practices on a daily basis, helping kids breathe, helping them calm down, helping them learn meditation. Significant change in the school itself. There were not as many write-ups. There were not as many kids who had to be seen by the principal. There were better scores done on the testing, and the kids were a lot more easy to be around. So everybody knew that when emotions were flying high, if they stopped for a minute and took a breath, just breathe, that simple skill alone can shift the relationship that's taking place.
Yeah. And, it's important to note, I think here that, many of the families we serve at Torchlight are raising children who need extra support in some way. Many may have a child who has ADHD or anxiety or behavior challenges, children on the spectrum. And much of what mindfulness can do can really help alleviate some of the challenges that come up with those diagnoses too.
Absolutely, Steffi. And the key is that the parents and the kids participate in the practice of these skills on a daily basis.
Yes.
Mindfulness is like putting tiny little pieces of awareness scattered throughout the day over and over and over again. So I have one family that every time they get in the car and they put their seatbelts on, they all take a deep breath.
Oh, that's great.
Before they walk out the door in the morning, mom puts her hand on the doorknob, and she's trained herself to take a deep breath before she walks out the door. Sometimes if you connect a new skill to something that you do regularly, you have a better shot at making it integrated into your life.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that thought of taking a deep breath before you open the front door in the morning. I could really use that myself. I think
Right.
most parents can understand how hectic the mornings are. And I think out of all of the times of the day, that might be for many families when we're all kind of at our worst, because everybody's in a rush, everybody's stressed. Someone might miss the bus. Someone might be late school and get a tardy slip. Someone might have a meeting they need to get to. There just seem to be a million things that people are anxious about in the morning, and yet there's a lot to do in a short amount of time, and everyone's stressed. So if you can work it into that time of day, I think that would be fantastic.
They're stressed, they're yelling, and you don't want to send your kids off with that kind of flavor in their mouth that, oh, mom was pissed or dad was pissed, and you feel bad all day.
A horrible feeling.
So here's another idea about mindfulness is you can always do a redo.
Okay.
You can always do a redo. So you're starting the day and you're beside yourself, you're pulling your hair out, you got these kids, put on your shoes, get your, where's your lunch? So stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Just tell her, okay, stop. Let's everybody take a breath. We breathe in and we breathe out and we go, okay, what's the first thing that we need to do? Put on our shoes. Okay, let's get that done.
Right.
And it changes the energy in the family. It changes the expectation. Sometimes it even allows us to laugh at the situation. How silly were we that we were running so crazy, get in the car when school is going to start without you anyway. I mean, you're not the principal.
Right.
School's going to start and let's start it with a much calmer, remember the kindness and the compassion and loving kind of like attitude that will make the day a whole lot more productive and easier for all of us.
Yeah. And I think as parents, we forget sometimes because we also get stressed, just like our kids. We forget that we have the ability to change the energy of a situation almost instantly. We really do. We really do. We can infuse humor into a stressful situation. We can take that deep breath and make everybody feel calm again. I mean, we really have a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for. In that way.
Yeah. And I also urge parents to recognize that when mom or dad are anxious, are nervous, are angry, are upset, and I understand that you are, and nobody talks about it, your kids can not only just see it on you, but they can smell it on you. So
they sure can.
They can't explain it. They can't tell you that, oh, mom, I'm worried that you're really angry. They just react and sometimes escalate their misbehavior, which gets you even more upset, but they don't know how to get out of it because they don't have life experience.
They're like little empaths.
They are. They're sponges. They just take it all in. So if you stop yourself and take a deep breath and you model for them what mindfulness is and you speak the truth, I am so frustrated about what's going on. I'm really getting angry. I don't want to get angry. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to blow all that anger out. I'm going to start over.
Yeah.
That might blow your kids' minds.
Yeah. And like you said, it's not too late. I mean, even if things have started off bad, if you've started to yell or you feel that coming, or maybe you're already in the midst of it, it's never too late to stop and turn that situation around.
Right. I like to say, even if your kid is 35 years old, still doing the laundry at your house, you still have a chance to change things.
Exactly. Right. So those are a couple of really good takeaways for parents that I will just reiterate quickly. One, pick, even if it's just one designated time every day. It could be during the morning routine, or it could be at some other time of day where it feels easy to remember, but take something very simple like buckling your seatbelts or opening the front door and make that part of the routine. Let that be your little reminder to remind everybody to take a moment to be mindful. So that's a great tip. And the second one being that when you feel something escalating, we have that moment where we can feel something spiraling the wrong way. Right. That's also a great opportunity to take a deep breath and create a new energy.
Right. Because life is going to go on. It's like, what can I do in this very moment that's going to bring some calm or some peace or even some love? What can I do differently? And when you ask yourself that question, you get space to make a different response. And that's definitely being mindful, because now you're in the present moment.
Yes. And if you model this, your children may automatically start to do it based on your example, or you can help remind them to do it when they're in those moments themselves.
Yeah, that's important to understand too, Steph. When you are modeling it, for instance, you haven't really said anything about mindfulness to your kids, but you go to the front door and you take a deep breath and the kids see you. They go, "Ma, what are you doing?" And so now they're curious. I'm taking care of myself. I'm being present. I want to have a calm day. So I'm just taking a big breath. You want to take a breath with me? And so you begin to hook them with your changes that you see in your own life that feel really positive.
Right. That's great. If you wanted to take it, if someone wanted to take it a step farther and you wanted to maybe teach your child to go through a short meditation exercise on a daily basis, where would one begin to start? How can you make that something that seems accessible to your child and like something they want to do rather than just another chore that their parent is making them do?
Oh, that's so important. Yeah, we don't want to make kids do anything because they'll come out sideways and help you understand why you didn't want to make them.
Right.
So there are a number, depending on your child's age, there are a number of resources available, and you can just even go to Amazon and some of the children's books, which are really very significant. Like there's a book called Puppy Mind that helps kids understand that their mind is like a little puppy and our job is to train it. And so when you train your mind, you're bringing it back to the present moment. There's another one called Moody Cow Meditates, about a little character who gets really angry and does some really naughty things and meets up with great-grandfather who helps him understand that mindfulness can be very powerful and that all those angry thoughts, when you sit still, settle in your mind so that they're not running the show. Let's see, there's one called You Are Not Your Thoughts, again, for young kids, that the thoughts that you have in your head are not who you are. You're so much greater and so much more beautiful than those thoughts that you don't have to follow them. And then there's even one for teenagers, Mindfulness for Teenage Anxiety.
Oh, okay.
That's a workbook that parents can use with children who are really anxious, at least an introduction. Then you can go on YouTube and just put in mindfulness for kids, and they come up with guided meditations that you can listen to, and some are only a couple of minutes long. And there's something called a body scan, which is also part of mindfulness and meditation, where you go through your body. Somebody kind of guides you, like think about your feet and then think about your ankles and think about your knees. And sometimes kids really like that. So at night, they'll lie in bed and listen to that on an audio tape or on YouTube or wherever you can pull it up. And then they participate in relaxing their body, staying in their body. And many times, because they're lying down, it helps them fall into sleep.
Yeah, I have a daughter who is notorious for having a tough time falling asleep at night. She has always been that way. And that is actually one of the main mindfulness exercises that I've taken her through over the years, is that same one: focus on your toes, focus on your feet, focus on your ankles, focus on your knees, and relax each one by one. And I found it to be rather helpful. I think she may still do it on her own now because she's a little older and doesn't need me to take her through it. And incidentally, it was also something that my mother did with me. So it's a good one.
Nicely done. And the key is that you do it regularly. Like, every day you get a little bit of relaxing with your body and focusing on specific areas. And that trains the brain to focus. So, many times we're dealing with the kids who are having a hard time focusing. We'll say, well, focus on your math, focus on your English, focus on your social studies. But we don't teach them what focus
But they don't know
means.
how to focus.
Right.
It's a skill.
Right. So a skill. And that's another benefit of being mindful, because now you're focusing on the present moment. You're focusing on your breath. You're focusing on your body. And that's practice. And I like to say, we grew up, I think I might have said that on the last podcast, that we grew up with practice makes perfect. I like to say that practice makes permanent.
Ooh, I like that better even.
Yeah. So if I keep doing it, I'll be able to own it. And I want to do it correctly so that it becomes part of who I am.
That's great.
Yeah.
When a child starts to engage in these practices, or a family does, how long would you say it typically takes for the people in the family to notice a significant difference in behavior, in levels of joy or contentment? How quickly do things typically improve?
That's a great question.
Probably a rather vague question, because it may be different for every family, I suspect.
For everyone. I mean, I've had families that I've worked with, and, after a couple of sessions and teaching them about the breath and about their brain, and, I'll have a family come back in, and the youngster will say, Mom has not been breathing lately. So it really depends. I mean, you could see a change in the dynamics of the family in a couple of days, or it might take a couple of months. But the key is, if you can keep doing the practices, if you keep the skills alive and well, and keep talking about it with kids, I think what happens is everybody finds kind of like their own neutral place of being, which is so much better than being hot-headed or angry or upset or unable to function, kind of like cooperatively in the home. But it so does take practice and conversation.
Is it a good idea for parents to maybe try some of these meditation exercises alongside their child? Is it maybe more or less helpful to, it seems like a good activity, or almost a bonding opportunity for parents and children to sort of sit down together and say, hey, let's go through this little exercise. Is that helpful, do you think?
Yes, because again, you're the model.
Yeah.
You are, not only are you teaching your children skills and how to ride a bike and, how to dig a hole in the sand at the beach, but you're also teaching them how to live their lives in a comfortable way and feel good in their own bodies. So we've not really been given those skills in the past. Mindfulness has come to the forefront of helping parents share with their kids ways to regulate their nervous system by spending a couple of moments consciously breathing or sitting still or meditating or doing that body scan. But when you do it together, there's an increase of energy. There's an exchange of awareness. There's community. There's connection. Our family does something that's really cool. We breathe before we get out of the car. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to practice mindfulness. It's not just sitting and meditating, but, being aware of all the things that allow you to stay present and do it with your kids and then talk about it. And I might have said this before, that when you name it and claim it, you can tame it.
Yes.
So kids don't have the dialogue. They don't understand how their brain works, and they are so curious. They really are curious.
And I think it may be important for some listeners to point out quickly that there may be times, particularly if you haven't done a lot of this in the household in the past, where your children may kind of balk at you in the beginning, like it may seem a little touchy-feely or something if it's not been a part of your family culture before. And it kind of is a part of mine, but even still, sometimes my kids, now that they're getting older, especially, you kind of get to that age where mom and dad start to seem sort of silly. And there are moments where you kind of might get the the little eye roll or the look like, oh, mom, like you're going to make us do this right now, that kind of thing. And so I wouldn't want parents to feel discouraged initially if that's the reaction that they get. But I think, at least for my kids, that even when I occasionally get that response, I think they secretly still like it.
I think you're right, because it is the right thing to do. It helps our body come to a place of calm.
Yeah.
The breath alone is not talked about, is not used. It certainly is not taught. And there are so many ways to breathe. And again, doing some research on mindfulness and kind of like finding different ways to breathe through some of the YouTube videos and some of the TED Talks that are there are really important. Those kids aren't going to go looking for it on their own. So it's like, this, you can even say, I know this feels really silly and maybe we're only going to do it for 30 seconds. Let's see if we can do it for 30 seconds. Wow, we did it for 30 seconds. I wonder if we could do it for 45 tomorrow. So spread it out. Don't make them sit for an hour. Spread it out. Like maybe 6 months to build up to 10 minutes.
Right. And I think that once they start to realize that, like, hey, mom or dad is a lot more calm now that we're doing this. Like, mom seemed like she was going to yell, but she didn't. And wow, this seems much more pleasant. I think they will quickly catch on to the fact that there's something to it.
Oh, so, yeah. And you've reached a crossing point when your kid comes up to you and says, Mom, would you go take a break and breathe? Yeah. This is not working.
Go take a time out, Mom.
Mom, go take a time out. I mean, as silly as that sounds, that's pretty amazing.
It is. There's a lot of self-awareness in a statement like that from a child.
Right. And so there's mindful breathing where you're aware of your breath coming in and out of your belly or your chest. There's mindful sitting. You can notice how you sit. Just be aware of where your body is. Awareness, come to the present moment. There's mindful body in space. And a lot of kids don't have a clue about their physical bodies. They spend a lot of time on the internet or on the gaming thing, and their physical bodies are not in space. So how are you moving? Practice that, being aware of where that is, and notice your muscles come into relationship with how did your leg move? What's making it move? And especially with little ones, it's kind of like really curious and fun. There's mindful seeing. So when you take them out for a walk, which they should be doing on a regular basis, help them see what they see, like the blades of grass or a butterfly or a cloud. And when I'm looking at a cloud, I'm not thinking of anything else. So I'm mindfully seeing what's going on. And do the same thing with hearing. Let's listen for the sounds. What sounds do I hear? Oh, is that the refrigerator motor going? Is that the dehumidifier? And I'm outside. Is that a squirrel? Is that the wind? So mindful hearing, just really being aware. And even mindful walking. Let's walk mindfully. Let's feel how your heel hits the floor and then your toe, and then you've got to put another foot down. So I'm being very mindful when I'm walking. I can do mindful eating. So we're going to the ice cream store. Let's just do 2 bites mindfully. And so I got to slow down. I got to take a breath, and I got to put that ice cream in my mouth, and I got to really feel it and the texture and the taste. And I do it a lot slower and notice how I chew it or not and what it tastes like. So mindful eating, maybe especially at a holiday or you sit down, 1 mindful bite. Let's just do 1 mindful bite. And I've practiced mindfulness for that meal. Being non-judgmental is a really important part, and being forgiving.
That's a great one.
Was that a judgment that you just kind of acknowledge, and can you just forgive yourself for that? And, maybe, or could we say it without judgment so that they're aware that practicing non-judgment is another skill? Because I think what happens with children is they become judgmental of themselves, and they're always kind of negating themselves or calling themselves names or don't have the confidence. And name it, claim it, tame it. Oh, was that a judgment when you said you were so stupid? Oh, Mom, I'm just so stupid. Is that a judgment? Let's kind of like rewind that. You're having a little difficulty. It doesn't mean what you're saying, because that's a judgmental statement. And then the other piece of mindfulness is to practice unconditional love for yourself and others. They call it loving kindness. And you could even go online and find meditations that encourage loving kindness, so that when the heart is open, and there's been a lot of research around the power of the heart, a kind, a generous, grateful heart cannot be angry. They are mutually exclusive. So when you practice gratitude and unconditional loving, you're also practicing a skill that helps make life easier. So those are just a few of the ways that you can practice mindfulness without sitting and being still.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. Those are so many, there are so many great pointers right there that I think parents and families can start with. Thank you, Gena, so much for being on the show. It's been really enlightening and enjoyable. I can't wait to try some of these new mindfulness activities with my kids. We have some we've been doing, but you've given me some new ones, so I'm so happy.
And that's the key to what's happening, especially with the research. They keep coming up with some new ways to wrap your brain around what mindfulness is all about, and meditation and being present for yourself, which is very exciting.
It is.
I just picked up a magazine in the supermarket. It said the new mindfulness at the supermarket with all the magazines at the checkout counter.
Oh, okay. Which magazine was it?
It's Living Time magazine.
Oh, okay.
It's called The New Mindfulness. Great articles.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Gena. And we look forward to doing more with you, hopefully, again in the future. As I said, I always like to have you back. Well, for those of our listeners who have a Torchlight account, you can find out even more information about this topic by logging into the platform. I recommend that you check out the e-guide called Mindfulness and Meditation Techniques, as well as the tool called Square Breathing to Reduce Anxiety. You can also find out more about Gena by visiting her website, which is, I believe, GenaRotas.com. Is that right, Gena?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Torchlight's Exceptional Parenting Podcast. Find this and other episodes on iTunes, Spreaker, and Podcast Go. If you're interested in bringing Torchlight Child or any of Torchlight's other caregiving products to your workplace, please contact info@torchlight.care. That's info@torchlight.care.